All right, breaking news as you heard Brandy say. This literally just broke. The Supreme Court of the United States. I'm trying to pull it up here, too, and I can't download the PDF fast enough. But from what I gather here, the Supreme Court has declared same-sex couples have a right to marry in the United States of America. I believe 36 states right now in D.C., it is perfectly legal, but that means the remaining 14 states, including Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, will have to stop enforcing their bans on same-sex marriage. Same-sex marriage rights have been granted to everyone in the United States of America. With a reaction on it first this morning, Josh Wagoner of the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network. Josh, good morning.
Good morning, and I'm excited to talk about marriage, and about GLSEN. But before we begin, I want to say thanks for inviting me, and that our thoughts are with Officer Kim's family as they prepare this morning for the public funeral, and with everybody on the force. The force has really come a long way in becoming resources to the LGBT community, and we're so grateful for that.
Yeah, and it's so good of you to say that, too, because, it is just one of those days. We have the very, very sad, Josh was mentioning, the funeral processional, the officers on the way, I guess, to the funeral, and literally it was 20 minutes of nonstop cars with their lights on, and that was just the marked vehicles. The unmarked are still heading there, and it is just puts a lump in my throat to think that there's that many people, not only in that thin blue line, the thick blue line it is today, but also in talking people off the air who went to the thing yesterday and today. It goes to show you how many good people there are in the world. So obviously our thoughts are first and foremost with everybody involved with that. But it is also, we can't stop the news cycle, and today's a historic day for gays and lesbians in that legally allowed to marry, which for a long time, as a straight person, I applaud, because I don't understand it. I don't get the ban. I don't get why you can't have marriage rights. As I've said for a long time jokingly, people who are gay and lesbian have every right to be as miserable as straight people when it comes to marriage.
And can you imagine being a gay kid now, figuring out now that you're gay versus figuring it out a couple of years ago? It's a whole different context. There's so much left to do, but it's a whole different context to know that there's not that specific roadblock ahead of you.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw, what has happened, sadly, with transgendered kids. And then I wonder how many kids who are gay took their own lives over the years, the decades, generations. How many people were lost?
Yeah. And, it's still a question of, how are we going to raise LGBT kids who are growing up healthy and who are growing up strong, and are ready for healthy, lasting relationships when they grow up in that environment. And how are they going to get the education they need and the economic opportunities that they need? Those are still things that we have to work on.
I'm getting, and again, this just broke too, and it's Josh Wagoner, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court of the United States has ordered that same-sex marriage rights be granted same-sex marriage rights be granted. And I'm trying to, again, because it just broke, trying to get all the details. I just learned it's a 5-4 vote. I'm not sure who wound up breaking which way. Obviously, liberal Democrat thing, and the Chief Justice, we know he broke yesterday with Obamacare. So it was I think yesterday was kind of indicative. With the vote on Obamacare, how things might go today?
I think we were cautiously optimistic.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I could say my prediction, and I'm not a guy who follows, the Supreme Court of the United States all that much. It's not like I've got that channel on my TV. I don't, generally when I make big decisions, I follow it, but I'm not like a geeky, wonky, lawyerly political type. But nonetheless, my uneducated position was that they were going to go this way. This does not surprise me at all.
Yeah, and it's not just it's a huge national story, of course, but it's also a really important local story. I'm so happy for Jim Obergefell, who was the named plaintiff. A Cincinnati guy. And I only met Jim and his husband, John Arthur, once before John died, but it was really easy to see, how they fit together. And it's a big day for Al Gerhardstein, who's a good friend of GLSEN. It was his genius to see that there was a narrow, specific issue of John's death certificate and him being listed on it as a single person, even though he was married to Jim. That's a wonderful firm. we have a lot of friends there, and it's great.
Yeah. Well, we also don't know exactly. I mean, maybe you have information on this. I doubt it, though, because this happened is literally you're on hold and we're coming out of news. Is that what the genius of it? It's always in the details, too, because there's things in here we don't actually know exactly, other than they ruled in favor of same-sex marriage, exactly what it means, do we?
Well, I mean, it means that marriage equality is the law across the country, right? I mean, it's...
Well, we think, but often, as the genius is always in the details, as you know, Josh, and, Justice Kennedy wrote the majority opinion on this thing, but at the same time, you also look at it and go, well, there may be some things in here we're not quite sure what they mean at this point, as generally is the case when the Supreme Court rules on something. It's not as always, just, hey, same-sex marriage, seemingly there's always something else in there, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. And the reality is that living in Ohio, I could, get married today, potentially, no plans, but then, go back to work, not where I work, gratefully, great place, but, go back to work and be fired for being gay and be denied an apartment for being gay. So, there's still a lot to do.
I just downloaded the PDF. Obviously can't get through the whole thing, but I scroll to the bottom here, Josh, where you're talking there, so I apologize. More stumbling around than I usually do. And let me read this to you for the first time. The final paragraph here. No union is more profound than marriage, for it embodies the highest ideals of love, fidelity, devotion, sacrifice, and family. In forming a marital union, two people became something greater than they once were. As some of the petitioners in this case demonstrate, marriage embodies a love that may endure even past death. It would be misunderstood, these men and women, to say they disrespect the idea of marriage. Their plea is that they do respect it so deeply that they seek to find its fulfillment for themselves. Their hope is not to be condemned to live in loneliness, excluded from one civilization's oldest institutions. They ask for equal dignity in the eyes of the law. The Constitution grants them that right. The judgment of the Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit is reversed. It is so ordered by the Supreme Court of the United States.
That's great.
They
said it. There it is.
Yeah, that's pretty poignant right there. I think if you're looking for the conclusion of this whole thing, basically what they did is they found the 14th Amendment didn't allow a ban on this, is what it is. They've interpreted the 14th Amendment. To those people on the other side who see this as a profound loss, and there's going to be marches, and I think Mike Huckabee said we'll never recognize this at all. Which is kind of funny because I thought he was a rule of law kind of guy, and the Supreme Court is the final arbiter of what the rule of law is in America. Nonetheless, there's going to be people gravely disappointed in this. What do you say to them?
I think you need to take a look around at who you're really living next door to, and who's really in your family, and who's really in your churches, because I think if you're still feeling that marriage equality and that equality in all forms shouldn't be the reality, then I think you're not really paying attention to who people are and what's going on in life. I think it's, people need to wake up.
I look at it, as I've said this all along. If you are an avowed same-sex, opposite-sex marriage advocate, traditional marriage and all that stuff, explain to me how gay marriage harms yours. How does it harm society? How does it not necessarily harm society? We have a lot of things that are harmful to society that are illegal. But how does it harm you and your relationship with your spouse? I have always failed to see how anyone could uphold that argument.
Well, you could be on the Supreme Court then, couldn't you?
Well, I could disagree, as the four justices and be on the Supreme Court too. But the point is, I never got how, Josh, you want to marry a guy, provided that they're a human being and an adult. I have no say in that. That's between you and your belief structure and the government. Obviously, you can't get married in the Catholic Church, nor I don't think you're pushing, and I don't think that your organization and others are pushing for that. I think that's one of those kind of delusional aspects that somehow you're going to force churches to recognize same-sex marriage. Nothing could be further from the truth. You're not going to go now petition the Catholic Church to get married there, are you?
I'm not. No, but I think there are so many wonderful, welcoming religious groups that, are going to be marrying people as soon as they can in Cincinnati. I think there's an event downtown at 4:30 now on Fountain Square or in the Westin lobby, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, I think there are a lot of, religious groups and free-thinking groups that are really welcoming to people. And I think, we've seen a trend toward people being, much more involved with groups that are more welcoming. Even allies, even straight people want to be in welcoming religious environments, and Catholics are crying out for that.
Right.
That's just the way that everything is moving.
Well, one of the aspects too, I think, that you see traditional religions starting to diminish and lose their power and sway that they once had is because of things like this.
I'm sorry?
I said one of the reasons that you see traditional religions, starting to decline as far as enrollment goes in the Americas is simply because of issues like this.
Yeah, I mean, again, if what's being spoken from the pulpit or what religions are saying in the media doesn't sound to people to be truthful based on who they know to be their friends and who they know to be their family members, then that stops being relevant.
Right.
And that's unfortunate because of the richness of a religious or spiritual life, but for many people, but that's the reality. If it doesn't sound truthful, then you've lost your voice.
Yeah, exactly. Again, on the show this morning, it's Josh Wagoner with the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network. At the breaking news, literally seconds ago, that the Supreme Court voted 5-4 in favor of same-sex marriage, meaning that states like Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky now have to recognize same-sex marriage. And again, we don't know all the details here because it's an opinion that's just been released, and it's obviously very long here, but I read kind of the back end of this thing too, and it's very uplifting to say, here's the thing. I'm going to defend the Catholic Church and churches. If you don't want to recognize and marry gay people, then I fight for your right. I fight for a right not to do that. However, the government, you should be able to go to the courthouse as a couple of men or couple of women in love with each other and be able to unite in holy matrimony. And we need more good people who want to honor the tradition of marriage in their own way, that are going to be good people, rather than the divide we have now. And this kind of gives me hope in this very sad week with Sonny Kim and all the bad news we've had, shootings and everything else. That maybe the next generation's getting this, and that it's not the color of our skin or our sexual identity, but rather whether you're a good person or a bad person. We need to marginalize the latter and make it easier for the good people of the world to unite and survive. That's what this is all about, in my opinion. So I appreciate the time. Thanks so much, Josh Wagoner. It was a great day. Congratulations. You've been fighting this for a long time, and it took tremendous courage. And I'm sure that also you tip your hat to your forebearers, too, because what they went through to get to this day is noted.
Absolutely. And, whether it's now or another time that we can talk, I really, we kind of didn't get a chance to talk about GLSEN, the work that we do in creating safe schools and supporting educators and all of this. So whether it's now or another time, I would love to talk to you about that.
Absolutely. And I think this, quite honestly, is GLSEN. It makes your job tremendously easier at this point, doesn't it?
I think it continues to open doors. It continues to create appetite that educators have for having more resources to have really inclusive schools. But we have a long way to go. In 2013, only 4% of students in Ohio schools, of LGBT students in Ohio schools, were in schools where there was a really good policy, an enumerated policy about sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression as it pertains to bullying and harassment. We know that if a school has those policies, then when a teacher hears anti-gay language or sees anti-gay harassment, anti-LGBT harassment, they're 2.5 more times more likely to intervene.
Right.
So the things that still remain to do, there's more opportunities.
There's a lot more to do. Josh, I got to cut you short here because we got some breaking news regarding the Sonny Kim funeral procession, but I will have you back some other time. Congratulations, and everyone there too as well.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks again. Have a great day as the Supreme Court legalizes same-sex marriage.